Awesome. Thank you, guys. I'm Sunil. I'm on the founding team at Ritual. And today I'll be talking about the intersection of AI and crypto and how Ritual is meant to be the base infrastructure platform for this. So it's no secret that AI is eating the world, right? This is probably the fastest adoption of any technology that we've seen pretty much ever. In fact, the only thing that's ever come close is actually crypto itself, right, over the past decade. So the usage of AI is up, but there's quite a number of problems with the way that AI is currently formatted and the way that the market structure of AI currently exists. For one, it's highly centralized, right? We have a lot of open source models that are out there, but there's really no good incentive problems for that, which means that a lot of the models that actually get usage are done with centralized entities like OpenAI. That also means that they can be highly permissioned and highly censored, and that doesn't necessarily create a great developer experience. For example, OpenAI launched the GPT store to allow people to create applications on top of GPT-4. There's now many cases of the top creators on GPT basically randomly having their apps, revoked or taken down and their accounts deleted, right? And that's not beneficial for anyone. It's also not beneficial for developers. And this has a lot of implications in the future, right? As AI is implemented in many new technologies, it's going to become really, really important that if that's a critical dependency in your application, there's no way for that underlying model to be censored or manipulated or taken away. In the same way that, if Amazon one day decided to shut down all your service for your application, it would be no more. We think that a similar failure case exists for AI applications. The other thing is that, models don't necessarily generalize to different applications in different parts of the world, right? We already see that in many, many parts of the world, ChatGPT, for example, is banned because folks do not, perceive it to be reflective of local users, local populations, etc. And that also just limits the access for users in that country. So being able to basically have some sort of mutual layer where a number of people can access different types of AI and have that option is important. And lastly, I think transparency matters, right? There's sort of this saying that now whoever controls AI models controls the world, right? But we don't actually have a lot of transparency into what's going into the development of these models, who's running them. When you use an AI model, how do you make sure that no one is actually messing with this, right? And I think this is sort of where crypto comes in, where crypto presents a very different vision for what data is, right? With AI basically says you can take a lot of data and supercharge it. You can make it sentient, you can make it act on its own, you can give it human-like characteristics. Crypto, however, basically says we can build a lot of really interesting trust and incentive assumptions and schemes around data to make it trustless, to make it easy to coordinate, and most importantly, to make it open, right? And a lot of the techniques that we've seen applied to Web3, to blockchains, to crypto, can be applied to AI, mainly along the lines of censorship resistance, proving the integrity of how these models are run, and enabling privacy primitives, right? So you can imagine that you would want a world in which you have AI models that are accessible from anywhere in the world, anywhere that you can pull them, users can use them, sort of access these models for use in their applications in the same way that Ethereum is sort of a global computer. As long as you have an internet connection, you can go and access Ethereum, you can go and develop applications on Ethereum, and you can go and use applications on Ethereum. It doesn't matter where you are, you have nodes in pretty much every country, right? And this is sort of what Ritual is meant to solve, right? We want to make AI accessible to all in a very crypto-native way, right? We can take advantage of a lot of the learnings that our team has found over the years operating in Web3 as investors and builders and apply those same techniques to models, right? So how do I make sure that there's a bunch of nodes around the world running models that anyone can access at any time? How do I inject cryptography primitives into these nodes to make sure that my data is private? Or when I'm accessing this node, I know that for certain that no one messed with my AI model. Right? So we're building infrastructure that kind of combines the best of AI and crypto and gives best-in-class infrastructure for developers to create sort of what new use cases, and I'll get into that in a second. So the phase one of Ritual is what we call Infernet, and it's what we have live today. You can use Infernet already, and it's the first product of its kind to allow you to bring AI models on-chain. And Infernet basically acts as sort of like an Oracle network. You can go and initiate requests for AI models using smart contracts. You can request them off-chain, and then you can put the outputs from those models either on or off-chain, right? And that enables a bunch of use cases. Ethan from MyShell, who's a very good friend, was up here to speak earlier today. MyShell will be using Infernet, for example, to track on-chain the interactions with their AI models, right? And they can go and back out a lot of really interesting incentive systems that are dependent on interactions with these models. And we can do a lot of things. FriendRug was built using Infernet, which I'll go into later, but for those of you familiar with FriendTech, it's like an LLM that sits inside a chat room. You can actually try and convince this AI model to buy and sell your keys, right? And that's one of the first examples of an agent actually controlling on-chain money and on-chain value that users can interact with. But what we're moving to is sort of ritual chain, and this is what the next stage of Infernet will be. And ritual chain essentially is taking this and putting it in its own sovereign execution layer in its own L1. And sort of like the idea behind ritual chain is that if you have nodes that can run the software for the chain itself, you can have those same nodes also run, AI models and do a lot of operations over that. And what this means is that if you can build a custom virtual machine, a custom execution environment built for AI, you can enshrine models sort of natively to the blockchain itself. And what does that look like for developers? That means that in like a few lines of smart contract code for any developer at any time, without needing to access like an external Oracle network, I can write that I want to access a certain model, and that means that when I send that transaction, the person that's receiving that transaction and executing it is also executing the model, right? So you can think of this as now smart contracts can access models natively for any sort of operation, whether it's inference, whether it's fine-tuning, for installation, for distillation, for quantization, and you won't actually have to think about sort of where the model is coming from because the people that are executing your transaction are also executing your model. And this will kind of create the best-in-class infrastructure for developing the future of AI and crypto apps, right? And the way I sort of, define that what AI and crypto apps looks like is sort of twofold. You can inject AI models into existing decentralized applications. If you take DeFi, for example, there's a number of lending protocols in the DeFi space that rely on sort of like human inputs or models from like a company like Gauntlet to go and essentially, tell you what your risk parameters should be, right? So if I'm building a lending pool, how much should I be able to borrow against asset B to get asset A? What we believe is that there's actually models that can do this better and faster and more automated than current systems, right? So you can actually architect a lot of current crypto applications, but with models instead of humans in the loop from the ground up. And ritual chain will sort of be the best place to go and do this, right? We also want to make sure that we continue to offer these capabilities to other chains. So not only will ritual chain have its own native ecosystem, we'll also use general message passing protocols to ensure that other chains can access models on ritual chain for their own applications use. And how we do that is sort of boiled down there, technically. If anyone's interested in diving more, please find me or Ashan in the crowd after. But we'll actually be building a custom VM around AI operations that extends the EVM to make all of this possible in the most performant way possible. But the core idea is that this will be the best in class to develop these sort of new age of AI apps and dApps. And these all reflect in our pillars, right? From day one, we want to make sure that ritual chain is sufficiently decentralized, has sufficient privacy and integrity primitives, and is incentive aligned for its entire community. We recently announced that we'll be working with EigenLayer, for example, to build on top of their restaking services. This means from day one, ritual chain and Infernet will be inheriting the decentralization and security available to the EigenLayer operator set, right? And the main intention behind that is that if you have nodes in every part of the world, you can ensure that these nodes that have access to compute can run models in every part of the world. So no matter where you are, there's going to be an option to go and be able to access AI models without getting censored or they're getting taken down. It's also important that on the ritual chain and on ritual's infrastructure, you can have full trust that your data is not being leaked to third parties or that your model is not being messed with during the run through. We engage a variety of cryptography researchers, both internally and externally, to go and build primitives around fully homomorphic encryption, trusted execution environments, verifiable ML, to ensure that that's possible. And all of our infrastructure is sort of built with that in mind. And the last part is incentives. A big problem in the current AI landscape is that there's a lack of incentives for building models, for serving them in applications, unless you can actually go monetize a business. So are there ways to actually build interesting incentive schemes to offer token-based rewards for serving models, contributing data, contributing proofs, labeling models, et cetera? We've thought deeply around all of this infrastructure. We've seen a variety of protocol designs across crypto over the years, and these are all things that we're kind of taking towards Ritual. And so you can build really anything. Like I said, you can build DeFi apps with models. We've already seen a number of applications trying to build a new age of content and media on-chain using LLMs and image generation models. There's ways to build interesting primitives around governing models. You can build DAOs around models, so where the DAOs can actually control what the models do. You can build AI NPCs and AI avatars that can play games for you and interact in games, which we're working with a number of partners. You can also enable AI with crypto. There's different parts of the stack that can use crypto primitives, right? Like I mentioned, you can add in cryptography, you can use crypto-based systems and blockchains to do data provenance, you can build better incentivization flywheels, and you can do governance. And this is the case study I mentioned earlier. Someone built an agent in a friend tech chat room. You can actually go play with this today. You can try and convince it to buy and sell your friend tech keys. If you're successful, it'll actually buy your keys and pay you in ETH, right? And we're always thinking about new research directions. building the ritual chain and building an AI optimized chain is not a trivial task. And so all of these are of relevance. We think a lot about open model governance. We think about how do we make proofs of compute more efficient? How do we make cryptographic primitives more efficient? How do we build better incentives? So if any of these are interesting to you, please find me. We'd love to engage with you. And what can you do today? You can run an Infranet ritual node today. It's live. It's very easy to run. Arshan's our guy for helping people get set up on that. You can use applications that are built on the network. You can come build applications on the network. And you can join our Discord. It's a very fun community. And you can find more details on our infrastructure and roadmap there. Thank you.